everyone, and welcome back to another roundup. You know what? A lot has went down in the gaming industry as of late. We've got the Dragon Age creator having his game just be ganked by Ubisoft's ex-creative director, creative dictator, Serge. Then Gaben, yes, he is big up Team Green right now. We also have got EA massively slashing the price of one of their new games just 15 days after launch, which is a bit mental. And the curious case of Apex developer Respawn's Glassdoor rating, which is pretty wild. So, look, we're on a drive, nay, a mission right now to hit 250,000 subs. And right now, half of our viewers are not subbed to the channel. Like, YouTube Analytics literally tells us this. So, let's fix that problem by hitting that sub button, smashing that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and of course, because watch time on this platform is king, watching this video. And in service of that, let's get started. First up, Avalon. So, Mike Laidlaw, who is a Dragon Age designer, he was hired by Ubisoft at the end of 2018. Now, this was pretty exciting because, obviously, we love Dragon Age Origins, kind of like Dragon Age Inquisition, you know, whatever. We're big up those BioWare-style games, so it was exciting. But then he left Ubisoft after just a year, and that prompted a lot of questions. And the good news is, we now know exactly why, thanks to Jason Schreier, who has been, well, quote, been collecting Ubisoft sources like a baleen whale collects plankton. So, yes, now this is, for context, that was tweeted by an Ubisoft staff member. So, yep, Jason has just been out there in the waters, mouth open, slurping up all of those juicy leaks. Now, Laidlaw was working on an RPG codenamed Avalon. This was a huge budget game involving Arthurian legend that was apparently going really well. It also apparently had a co-op multiplayer mode likened to Monster Hunter. Now, Monster Hunter, think about the sales that got. So it seems like Ubisoft may have missed out on a trick if they could have been getting in a bit of that market. Now, since Jason broke this news, there have been a few statements on basically the narrative, how it was really strong, and how the game was actually shaping up really well. Some ex-staff, ex-Ubi people saying they were really excited about it. But sadly, it was cancelled. It was not cancelled because it was bad. It was not cancelled because of development issues. It was cancelled because Serge, who is, of course, our big man from the video we did a few days ago, which you absolutely must watch. It is so important. He basically was the creative dictator, the one man you had to get your game across. And of course, there was also, you know, harassment and lots of very bad things going on with him as well. But the thing is, you know, as well as not liking linear narrative stuff, Serge also doesn't like fantasy settings. Now, he was the chief creative officer of Ubisoft, credited for most of their major franchises, but the guy just didn't really like fantasy. And because of who he was, he had, like, singular power to cancel projects based on just him not really liking the setting. That was it. Now, Laidlaw and his team scrambled to switch it from being Arthurian to being other types of settings, but Serge apparently just said that fantasy games had to be better than Tolkien, which is a cool ambition, but quite a tricky goal to reach. And this is the exact sort of change that, what we hope to see anyway is change that now that Serge is gone, because of all of his terrible deeds and also terrible decisions made with video games, then maybe when he's gone and there's actually more of a council of people making those decisions, then yeah, perhaps we'll actually get to see more interesting games from Ubisoft. Now, obviously, giving a single person that much power is completely insane, especially creatively. You definitely want a bit of a council to help sort of guide the ship, but having somebody with such complete control, with no real oversight, it seems, that's what seems insane here. You know, that's one guy who is basically bottlenecking the creative output of thousands and thousands of people. And it's that thing where if he's greenlighting or canning projects openly, just on his own taste, then he's clearly not fit for purpose, right? Now, he clearly caused Ubisoft to lose what I think we could all say would probably be quite a strong game, and hopefully we actually get to see Ubisoft's extreme wealth of resources put to more creative use in the coming years, now that he's not there. And also, by the way, while we're on the topic of Ubisoft, we also got confirmation that, at least during 2020, their next-gen games will cost $60. So yes, Take-Two may have jumped the gun. Maybe Take-Two hoped that they would be the leaders and the rest of the industry would follow them up to $70, but it seems no, that Ubisoft are sticking at 60. Next up, let's talk about Gaben. He has been recently taking refuge in New Zealand during COVID, a pretty wise choice. New Zealand really did that one pretty well. And he recently made the news by funding a celebration concert to thank the country for their hospitality. But on a TV show that Gaben was on, he was asked if he prefers the new PlayStation or Xbox console. And without skipping a beat, he just said, "Oh, Xbox." He didn't clarify further, which is really frustrating. I would love to know why Gabe thinks that, but he's been on the record before against Sony, particularly on the nightmare that was their cell architecture. He was sort of against them there, but in fairness, he has been pretty salty at Microsoft. He's been pretty, at basically both companies. Of course, they tried to push Linux with Steam machines, which didn't really go anywhere. But perhaps there's a situation now where, of course, you've got Microsoft games, you've got some EA games also coming onto Steam. Microsoft is opening up a bit more. It's being a bit more pro-consumer. So maybe the situation there is that Microsoft have actually warmed themselves to Gaben a little bit. And maybe it was that older era of, the Xbox One announcement that had us all laughing. Maybe it was that era of Xbox that really is what actually made Gaben turn against them so much. I mean, as for why, I obviously can't read into Gabe's mind, but I'm fairly sure that he will see the more pro-consumer aspect of Microsoft's business model and also see that it fundamentally is just a pretty powerful box of hardware and basically like that. But hopefully, though, Gabe has said enough that he's now going to have to elaborate, so hopefully we'll find out, because suffice to say, it's Gabe. He's a smart guy. He's been a real pillar of the PC gaming industry for a long-ass time, and I'd love to know why he thinks what he thinks. And next up, Rocket Arena. So when's the last time we saw EA take a chunky loss only a week or two after a game's launch? We have seen it a few times before. Do you remember when Battlefield 5 came out and it had super deep discounts shockingly fast? Well, this time it's happened at record speed with a game called Rocket Arena. And I'm sure you probably haven't heard of Rocket Arena, right? Not many people had. It released 2 weeks ago, and just 10 days after its launch, it got hit with a 75% off sale. Now, what the game is, it's a 3v3 rocket-based shooter by an indie studio published by EA. And to sort of explain succinctly, it's a bit of Quake, it's a bit of Smash Bros, and it's got a very Fortnite aesthetic. You know, rockets, hero abilities, air dodging, a Smash Bros-like health and death mechanics. It seems kind of cool. And it does have a bit of that sort of generic cartoonish look. Like the character designs look a bit like Paladins or Battle Right crossed with Fortnite, which isn't bad, it's just uninteresting, but the gameplay actually looks pretty fun. I mean, come on, rocket-based stuff, rocket fragging, it's always pretty cool, and it seems like this combination of influences actually does just work quite well. Now, what's bizarre is that it's got all the trappings of a generic but fun free-to-play game, but what's insane is EA charged $40 for it on the get-go, so it's good to see that they're now selling it for 75% off, right? They've probably realized that actually they need a different business model here, and it just goes to show that even that, when a game gets decently reviewed, there's a lot of other factors to look at here, and this is just a case of, EA seemingly had a really solid game that could have found a great audience, but just bungled up the business model quite a bit. If they had have just launched this free-to-play or maybe at $5, $10 from the start, could have done a lot better. That said, it could be that this big discount that they put into the game is going to create enough of a sort of a news wave that people will actually know the game exists. To be honest with you, I only remembered that this game existed because of this bit of news. So hopefully it works out pretty well, because you know what? This mix of, Quake-style rocket fragging, but with a Smash Bros. Health system, that actually sounds pretty cool to me. Then next we got a bit on Respawn, where basically a pretty scathing review is put onto Glassdoor, but oddly, the review actually praises that Respawn Entertainment actually knows how to make great games, but the negative part of the Glassdoor review, and Glassdoor, by the way, is a site where employees can leave reviews of companies, but the negative is basically just that they are always scrambling. Now, first, they didn't actually extend deadlines or delay content on Apex to make up for the COVID delays. Now, that does seem pretty insane, given there would obviously be, delays that should happen because of the transition to working from home, but it is just that thing where between Fortnite and Apex and Warzone, all of those games and their mobile equivalents, it is a constant race, right? We've got to update our seasons. We've got to have our events. We've got to have more cosmetics for players to get. It is just absolutely bloody relentless. And we all remember last year the stories from behind the scenes at Epic Games where staff were just going through, especially in QA as well, the most insane stuff. Now, in that case, they were being paid, I believe, pretty handsomely for any overtime, but still, they were working like constantly, like 80-hour weeks and stuff like that. And it just seems like this ended up happening for this employee. Now, what's interesting is that the reviewer says they felt very stressed, very burnt out, trying to keep the seasonal releases to actually, maintain their super aggressive, release schedule that they were claiming they were working between 12 and 13 hours a day. Now, they allegedly have, apparently, right, they have no idea how to do a live service well. They can't really plan around it. They don't know how much work they've actually got to do, and that is messing up employee timelines. Now, apparently, they're also not really paying any attention to employee health, that they're told to look after themselves and to take care of their health, but that they have to keep the same schedule despite the problems with COVID leading to delays. Now, this is fairly damning, and it is, of course, reminiscent of stories that we've heard before from the likes of Fortnite and other live services. The player expectations are really high, and the players are fickle, so if you don't keep the updates coming, if you don't compete with the other games, then yeah, those players could just wander off and put their time somewhere else. Now, the thing is that, as it seems, this is only one part of the story, though, as the Apex director, Chad Greener, has responded to it on Reddit. And he does say that, yes, the transition to working from home hit them all hard, that they didn't initially have, the tools in place for, like, a smooth transition, and that they know they had enough pressures anyway, and that this would be the biggest challenge. Because, both work from home is harder for them, but also that, it's a global pandemic, so it's a bit rubbish for everyone involved. Now, Chad says that he was vocal every day telling people to only work as much as they can, and that Respawn and EA leadership reiterated this, and that they put things like benefits in place, like unlimited paid time off for people feeling unwell, either physically or mentally, and also time off to take care for family, as well as reimbursement for home equipment, extra pay for internet and energy bills, flexible work hours, all of those things to actually make it work. And he was actually vocal in deadlines, saying that he continually asks for people to speak up to their managers or producers if they feel like they're not able to meet deadlines without crunch, and the delays are fine, but it just needs to be communicated up the chain so the team can adjust. And he basically says in the post, he's not trying to call out the reviewer or to call them wrong or anything like that. He says, like, it's a team full of rock stars, passionate people who don't want to be the person who speaks up and causes a feature to be delayed knowing they let everybody down. And they want to create cool stuff, fix bugs, and that they will actually crunch themselves to do that. But he says that the leaders are learning to actually look for the signs of this happening and to proactively delay instead of waiting for teams to complain. And that is a very interesting issue that does crop up with people where, yeah, they'll just kind of slave away and not really tell you about it. And then, of course, they'll be disgruntled about it. Now, being this vocal about issues within his studio is really, refreshing from a major person. It's great to see they're aware of the actual problem here, where they set the deadlines and they ask people to say if it turns out that those deadlines are impossible. Now, that is then putting the onus of a delay onto the staff, meaning that, those staff members might feel the social pressure to just not cause a delay because, if you're the one guy who causes the delay, but all your other, teammates, all their features were shipped on time, then you're going to feel like a bit of a dickhead. So it's an interesting situation. But yeah, supposedly now they're asking employees to come out and say, we need to delay this update when it's actually needed. And I guess in an ideal world, that does make sense. This is the thing that should be happening. But I guess it is really challenging because if you are leading a business, you're always going to be wanting to increase your numbers and make them better. And if all the deadlines are being hit and the staff are not telling you that they're not happy, well, are you just going to go around and start snooping into people's lives and be like, hey, are you really okay? Like, are you going to be that sort of pestering boss? So I think it's a really tricky situation where I think the bosses need to be aware of the behavior of certain staff members, but then staff members have also got to maybe take a little bit more responsibility for their own, mental health and things like that. And I think really what matters there is having a company culture where talking about those things is actually okay. And here's the thing, right? We have an office now. But, I started doing YouTube in 2013, and I absolutely know that working from home can be an absolute curse. You can do it wrong. And also, it can lead to this problem of Parkinson's law, right? Where you actually just work more hours but less efficiently. And I think that's something that really can hit people when they're in work from home, especially if their organization has not been well prepared for that transition, and if they themselves as a person are not prepared for that transition. There are some people, they move to work from home and they are entirely okay with it. They just get it. They can self-manage, self-direct, do all of those things. But there are some people who really do appreciate having a manager. People who just like to go into work and have somebody say, here are your tasks, here are when they're supposed to be done by. And for a lot of people, that structure is what enables them to do their best work. So it's that sort of thing where work from home, it really just does hit different people of different personality types and work ethics and work experiences in different ways. I think this example in Respawn is probably a company that's trying to do its best to make sure that things are okay for the staff. They've been vocally anti-crunch for a long time, but seemingly just not picking up on a few staff, just kind of taking not causing a delay into their own hands and all of those social pressures. It reminds me a bit of Naughty Dog, where, Naughty Dog has all those work condition problems. And reportedly Naughty Dog and Sony did some real bad stuff there, but a lot of it also was this sort of company culture, right? Where people are always going to be perfectionists, always going to crunch really hard, and they're just not going to be the guy who is seen to let the team down. And that is going to lead people to burnout and ultimately cause a bad Glassdoor review for your company, which if you're running a company is not what you want, because the single most important thing you can do as a company is to hire people right, to hire the right people and to retain them. So bad Glassdoor reviews is obviously very, very, very bad. So an interesting situation. You know what? An interesting bloody day in news. Serge, this Avalon game sounds really cool, and you seem like a total dickhead for what you did to people at your company, and also like a totally fracking bankrupt creative for the decisions that you made and forced upon people. I mean, come on. Did every Ubisoft game really have to be like that? Did they all have to feel the same? Did I really need to have radio towers in my driving game to unlock the map just because it was there in Assassin's Creed and worked? Oh, Serge, what a hack. Good that he's gone for many different reasons. A little bit sad, though, that this Avalon game ended up not seeing the light of day. I'd love to know, though, what do you think about the topics we covered today? And of course, we're on our big sub drive. We're going to get to 250,000 at some stage in time. And you know what? That point in time will be a bit faster if you help us out and hit that sub button if you haven't already. And in return for that, we shall be producing as much content as we humanly can in service of, giving you more gaming news, having a good time while we do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.